Sarah McBride doesn't get a say. I mean, this is a biological man. He does not belong in women's spaces, women's bathrooms.
What Nancy Mace and what Speaker Johnson are doing are endangering all women and girls. Because if you ask them, what is your plan on how to enforce this? They won't come up with an answer. What are they doing? They're doing this so that Nancy Mace can make a buck and send a text and fundraise off an email. They're not doing this to protect people. They're endangering women. They're endangering girls of all kinds. And everybody should reject it. It's gross.
Damn! There's nothing more Republican than demeaning a marginalized community as a means to fundraise and deflect from the fact that you aren't doing the work that your constituencies voted you in to do.
Republican Congresswoman Nancy Mace, smelling blood in the water and never wanting to miss a good opportunity for self-promotion, decided to take aim at one of her newly elected colleagues, a woman named Sarah McBride, who happens to be transgender.
Republican Congresswoman Nancy Mace introducing a resolution to ban transgender women from using the women's restrooms at the U.S. Capitol. The move comes just weeks after the first transgender person was elected to Congress. Democratic Congresswoman-elect Sarah McBride will be sworn in January. She responded in a post on social media. She writes this, quote, "This is a blatant attempt from far right-wing extremists to distract from the fact that they have no real solutions to what Americans are facing. We should be focused on bringing down the cost of housing, healthcare, and childcare, not manufacturing culture wars. Delawareans sent me here to make the American dream more affordable and accessible, and that's what I'm focused on." Some of McBride's soon-to-be Democratic colleagues defended the incoming lawmaker. Congressman Joe Morrell telling Axios, quote, "I think we have a lot of problems in America. I don't think spending time worrying about the restroom is an order of priority here." Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez called the move plain bullying, while Congresswoman Becca Balint said cruelty is the point.
The transgender community is under attack by the Republican Party. They're under attack by people like Congresswoman Nancy Mace and Mike Johnson. They're under attack at the Supreme Court because that case is going to be going up there soon. I'm going to break this all down, but essentially the Republican Party, this is not new for them. They did this with the LGBT community way back when they tried to ban them from serving in the military, where they tried to use fear-mongering about, gay marriage and how somehow people shouldn't be able to talk about this, a lot of fear around the children. We're seeing that same playbook. We saw that playbook used in this election, and that fear and misinformation helping the Republican Party. So Nancy Mace, she wants to get on board and she wants to continue to help her own power by demeaning this really vulnerable population. It's such a very small and vulnerable population, the transgender community. Families who have children who transition talk about the fact that this is one of the most difficult decision for the child, for the parents, how difficult this process is, being born in a body that you don't identify with. How hard that is. And now you have this Congress trying to take away the ability to use a bathroom, to make who you are and what you have been through something so bad that they have to make a rule about it before something has even happened. Basically, Congresswoman Sarah McBride won a seat in the House, the first ever transgender woman. Nancy Mace goes on and does 300 tweets, gives tons of interviews to try to put down the Congresswoman, and that's how she's trying to put herself up. If you have to put yourself up by putting yourself down, you know that you are on the wrong side of the aisle. But that's what Nancy Mace does. And let's take a listen to hear what she says.
Sarah McBride doesn't get a say. I mean, this is a biological man. He does not belong in women's spaces, women's bathrooms, locker rooms, changing rooms, period, full stop.
I think one of the most crucial things she says in there is the fact that, according to her, Sarah McBride doesn't have a say. This is the core of the Republican Party. It's not about how somebody's identifying, if it's transgender or part of the LGBTQ community. It is about the fact that they think somebody else, and for today is this transgender person, is less than them, is insignificant, diminishing that person's value and that person's worth. And I think that's actually the most offensive thing that Congresswoman Mace did in the whole thing, is try to diminish somebody who is her equal. Sarah McBride is her equal. She was elected to Nancy Mace the same way, in the same term. She has no more power and no less power than Nancy Mace. It's not up to Nancy Mace whether or not Sarah McBride has a say. She does have a say. She has an equal say. And she used that say in the most eloquent way in her own statement, basically saying, this isn't about the bathrooms, let's get back to work. But Nancy Mace, when she says that Sarah McBride doesn't have a say because Sarah McBride doesn't live the way she wants her to live or do the things she wants her to do, what she's actually saying is that if you don't live by my rules, then you don't have any value and I'm willing to take away your rights. So it's not about the bathrooms. We know it's not the bathrooms. It's about the Republican Party trying to demean this really vulnerable and very small segment of our population because they think it helps them. The fear, the fact that most people don't know a transgender person, and that unknown can be used to their benefit because then they can say whatever they want about them. We've seen that playbook before, and the LGBT community had to overcome it. And now we see this transgender community having to face this same thing. But often this transgender community is younger because usually they are young when they realize this and have to transition. So they are younger. And because they are so much smaller, it is even harder for them to have advocates and allies and be able to push back against somebody like a congresswoman with so much power. So good for them. They have somebody like AOC who says this.
What Nancy Mace and what Speaker Johnson are doing are endangering all women and girls. Because if you ask them, what is your plan on how to enforce this? They won't come up with an answer. And what it inevitably results in are women and girls who are primed for assault because people are going to want to check their private parts in suspecting who is trans and who is cis and who's doing what. And so the idea that Nancy Mace wants little girls and women to drop trow in front of who? An investigator? Who would that be? In order because she wants to suspect and point fingers at who she thinks is trans is disgusting. It is disgusting. And frankly, all it does is allow these Republicans to go around and bully any woman who isn't wearing a skirt because they think she might not look woman enough. People have a right to express themselves, to dress how they want, and to be who they are. And if a woman doesn't look woman enough to a Republican, they want to be able to inspect her genitals to use a bathroom. It's disgusting. And everybody, no matter how you feel on this issue, should reject it completely. What are they doing? They're doing this so that Nancy Mace can make a buck and send a text and fundraise off an email. They're not doing this to protect people. They're endangering women. They're endangering girls of all kinds. And everybody should reject it. It's gross. Thank you.
Thank you.
The fight for transgender rights is not just in Congress with Nancy Mace. It's not even just at the ballot box. It is in the courts. The Supreme Court is going to be hearing a landmark case involving transgender rights. They're going to be hearing it on December 4th, and it involves a Tennessee bill that outlawed non-surgical options such as hormone replacement therapy for transgender people who are trying to transition. They said that they outlawed it, and the ACLU brought the case saying that this was discriminatory. You are discriminating against the kind of medical care for only specific people. And the Supreme Court, which we know has disappointed us many times over these last few years, specifically with abortion and Dobbs, is going to look at whether or not they are willing to protect transgender people as a protected class and say, yes, this is discrimination, that families should have a right to be able to do whatever medical decisions they think are necessary for their child or somebody, themselves wanting to have this kind of treatment. Again, is it going to be the government that decides, or is this going to be a private issue between the person and their doctor and the family? And the Supreme Court is going to be deciding this on December 4th, when we hear that oral argument, we're going to get a lot from those questions alone, what they are willing to do. And this will give us a glimmer on how well they are willing to be able to protect same-sex marriage. We knew that that is going to come into question after Dobbs. That case hasn't come before the Supreme Court, but whether or not the Supreme Court is going to be willing to protect somebody's individual rights to live in a way that they think that they should live in this country, this case before them is going to give us a handle of how extreme this court is willing to go.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Midas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.